Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. This is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. I'm so glad that you're able to join us. I'm really glad too. I know, Bob, it's a dual kind of join us, if there's even such a word, but who cares? Anyway, I was thinking this week a little bit about how everything changed, how we have these moments in our life where key things happen that you know you're on the mountain of change, or something's finally, changed in such a way that it makes life easier for you, or you learn a new skill, or you master something, which I suppose is basically the same thing. But there are points in our life, key points in our life when things change, and it just feels fantastic, and they can open up these new doors of opportunity, even if it is just something within yourself where you're following up on learning new skills, or you're joining groups, or it's just endless. And that's something I really love about the world, just that there's just this smorgasbord of everythingness, and there's so much that we can actually do. But for myself, I'm starting this particular podcast at a moment where I taught myself how to convert cassette recordings to digital. Sounds very impressive, doesn't it? Especially if you don't know how to do it, but let me tell you, anybody could. There will and will always be, as long as we are alive, we'll have moments where we feel exultant with change. We may have done something that we thought we never could or would do. Loads of attempts until it worked. I was so happy about it. There are, to me, very important recordings when my children were babies, through right from the time that they were babes right through to 9 years old. I interviewed each of my three daughters, as we called them, the interviews, at different stages of their lives. Their responses to things, so honest and sweet, and they're just a real treasure. And I want to tell you this because when I have on occasion shared this particular story, people have always loved the idea to then do it in their own family. So maybe this will strike a chord with you. There will be so many points in your life where the proverbial penny dropped, when you suddenly understood something, when you got it, and it was a great feeling that you'd studied and you'd worked it out, or you didn't let things or a person bother you anymore, that you just got it. With raising our kids or remembering being a kid, we think that we will remember it all, but so much slips between the cracks, doesn't it? And if you're anything like me, if you've had a few kids, it is tricky to recall every conversation that you've had with your children as individuals, especially when they're young and where there's more than one. And we can think something was said in a certain way, for example, but my recordings dispel any untrue notions, and they are cuter and more valuable with every year that passes. Yes, there are always standout memories that will be remembered for all time. The really interesting talks that arrive and they warm your heart. Next thing, they're leaving home some 20 years ago. Anywho, was it really that long? Well, probably not really that long for my last one. My last girl left, I think, about 6 years ago, and that feels like 20 years, okay? Anyway, the little people, babies, toddlers, little kids, are remarkable in their honesty and what they know of the world, with their cute little voices, their loving ways, and their giggles. I found my old cassettes and I started listening and remembered, or rather noted, that they were from the 1980s, and instantly knew I had to find someone to convert them, because suddenly I heard that horrible sound, the cassette players chewing it up, and then you carefully have to pull the tape out, and then you pull that very technical piece of equipment out, a pencil or a pen, and you slot it into one of the holes of the cassette, and you gingerly, wound the tape back in. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't convert these, they will be lost for all time. And it's one of those jobs that I was always intending to get done. I don't know if you've ever had to get something done, if I'll do that. And then 30 plus years disappeared without letting me know, one of those jobs. Then the pandemic arrived. So I YouTubed madly to find instructions to convert cassettes to digital. Finally found a couple of dudes from the States who presented a very down-to-earth, easy to follow, easy to do tutorial, the operative word being easy. Yeah, I think we got that. Good on you, Bob. And bingo, I was able to convert quite a few cassettes to digital. Now, because I'd done that, it opened up the whole notion of that I was teachable. I know. It's such a big deal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Big deal, you say? No, we didn't. Yes, you might have. I didn't really know that consciously until that moment, truth be told. I probably would have kept putting off finding hopefully a techie business to convert the cassettes for me. But the pandemic and the amount of time that I was actually on my own meant I really had to get dedicated about having my focus on something, and unintentionally it sort of became learning. So no, it was most definitely not an intention. Turned out it was necessary for mental health reasons. And over the pandemic, like so many of us, and of course all the research points very clearly to ongoing learning keeps the brain growing, and the benefits are enormous, and all I can think about is I'm going to have to get a really big hat at this rate. I know. Thank you very much. I was leaning on statements that have been sold to me as facts, by teachers who shouldn't be teachers. One in particular took great pleasure in telling me that I would never amount to much. And, that's fairly ordinary, as I would think now, especially having daughters and put them through the schooling system. Anyway, she was a mean-spirited, sad old sack of a person who was a negative representative of teaching or of a teacher, because I actually knew a couple of really fantastic teachers. Now, this is a classic hole that we can fall into. We remember a daft statement sent to us, but can by the same token forget all the terrific things that are said to us. How true is that? I mean, really it is, isn't it? Oh, it's so true. Anyway, so very important that. I had a teacher once that said I was useless. Well, I simply will not have it. It's not true, Bob. You're a classic. And as an old head and shoulders commercial said, you never have a second chance to give a first impression. And I think that teacher just blew it. Yeah, I'm nice. Yeah, so it is important, very important, to take those statements out of your head. It's all about them and it's not about you. That's right. I have a memory. I refused to cooperate in my typing class because the teacher was just mean as hell. And she did and said things that she should never, not just to me, but to others. But I was her main, she really, honed in on me. Little did she know that, it was quite mutual. I don't think much of her either. Anyway, so up your pie hole, lady. I am teachable. Turns out I discovered I have a brain that loves to learn. Who knew? So you hear me, right? Her opinion of me never adding up to anything was wrong, but I believe for some time I did have a deep-seated belief that I couldn't learn new things. It was deep down there somewhere, but it was there. This will be so many people's story, that one size does not fit all, that the education that we all receive shouldn't just be about memorising facts and being tested on false history, and not helpful at all for navigating real life, right? That's right. It had never been a conscious thought that I applied to myself, but it is now though. Oh yes, I've turned that right around. I have much faith in my abilities, even if it is to just have a go. Always had it, but I didn't know it, and lost it over time without realising it. Gee, that sounds like quite the thing, doesn't it? I'll say that again. I have much faith in my abilities, even if it is to have a go. Always had it, but I didn't know it, and lost it over time without realising it. My goodness, it's almost sad, but we won't be sad. Faith to give something a go, but I know now, and I hope you do too. I was in my 50s, and I know that there are many of us, and much younger, that have just had their confidence tampered with by very average sorts who are just really drawing a wage because clearly there was no teaching going on. Everything changed when I stopped thinking about what I can't do and started doing what I may have deemed that which might have been impossible to me before. If you're struggling to overcome negative thoughts about yourself, even addiction, no one needs to tell you that it's tough, right? I want to encourage you that you are not alone, and yes, change is really possible. Absolutely yes. I know. Yes. Thank you. We all have life-changing moments, or a story where we have, with one decision, changed our lives, changed everything. Now, this is a little bit of, not really on subject. Oh, how unusual for you. Thank you, Bob. I just love you. I love your support. But I was in the supermarket this morning, and this big, tall, gigantic man who was hovering way above me looked down at me and he went, strawberries are only $2.99 a pot, or you can get 3 for $5. And I said, well, thank you very much. As I looked up at his bogey-soaked nostrils, he went, yeah, they're over at Mayfair. I went, oh, thank you very much. Anyway, the thing was, it came out of absolutely nowhere. I could have handled that in a myriad of ways. If I was in a bad mood, I might have just kept on walking. But I just thought he really wanted to share the good news about the strawberries. And then as he walked away, he went, yeah, I'm off to go and buy some sweets now. It took everything in me not to laugh, but he wasn't being funny. But it was comical. Life can be comical, can't it? Anyway, back to decisions and changing our lives and all that jazz. That decision I made to teach myself in that instant changed how I thought, how I acted, how I lived, and how I felt. I could never have known that it was something I was reclaiming, if you will, just by giving the conversion from cassettes to digital a go. A conscious sit-up and observing my changing headspace. Turns out there really is no space, no more free rent, no more free space available for nonsense thinking. I decided that I would continue teaching myself about everything I'm interested in. Turns out that's a lot. There were things that I wanted to achieve, both start and finish. None of it was easy and still continues at points to not be easy. But I knew in my case that I had to push through all the disbelief, the walls, and the most interesting part was most of it was me. I was the wall. It was on me. I had somewhere along the way collected the baton and had continued on a deep level of holding myself back. Oh boy, and I think that's a form of unconscious self-gaslighting. Oh, stop, have a day off, you special case. No, Bob, I can face that. I can see the value in that. Oh, okay. It's not up to anyone else. No one has the key to my life but me. I had built a prison inside myself, but I had the key. What? Yes, and that's what makes my daily work so much more doable because I always have the key, as do you. Keeping a positive mindset is more important than ever, and we can make ourselves joyful by showcasing what we do to bring it in our lives. We all have tricks and tips that make a profound difference in our lives, and as you know, I am an advocate for self-care and empowerment. Hashtag everything changed. I set the tone for my day by going to the gym. And as I work out, I'm aware that I'm moving my body and I can feel it strengthen. Now, can we just get very clear here? I'm not going to the gym and, doing these fantastical weights over my head and, pushing all these, huge numbers and all the rest of it. All I'm doing is moving, and if I'm not feeling particularly strong or I might be feeling tired, I just use the lowest weights on any of the resistance machines and I'm just watching my form. I'm just moving, and that's all we need to do is move. I'm not competing with anybody. I just go in and do my thing. I love listening to the music, and I love many different genres. There is some music that they play at gyms that I just honestly want to neck myself. But anyway, we won't go there. If I find myself thinking or feeling negative, I quickly tell myself I have everything I need. It's just an expansive thought, isn't it? I have everything I need, or what can I do next? I mean, how often do you actually ask yourself that question? Because what happens then is the mind goes looking for other cool things for you to do. Health, family, friends, and an array of interests that I love. I love to plan healthy meals and make sure that I have fresh veg and fruit, for example. I love animals. I enjoy their individual personalities. I like talking to animals. I like that look on their face where they're like, you do know that I don't know what you're saying, but anyway, you know what? I think they're glorious. And yes, thank you. Thank you. I don't even know who I'm saying thank you to, but it doesn't matter, does it? Not really. I go away for a few days once a month, every month, deep into the countryside and relax completely. Now, I've told you this before, but if you're new, you might not know that. And I paint and I design new ideas and I get very excited about new projects I have on going all the time in some fashion. I love baking fresh bread and relishes, and I cook tasty, healthy food. I love baking. I know, you mean you love my baking. Well, same thing. Well, I guess that's right, Bob. I love playing my guitar, and I like keeping my fingers strong with chord changing, because now and then, now that I'm in my 60s, I can feel little aches and pains that happen under my thumbs, and so I don't know what it is, but my mother had it, and it actually made her thumbs completely collapse into the palms of her hands. So she basically only had 4 fingers that you could see, and I can sort of feel the rumblings of that. So keeping my hands moving and giving myself nice little light massages, I think, we'll be keeping that at bay as long as we can. But by the same token, I know what I'm not drawn to, and I have a strong sense for what I can't tolerate or put up with or stomach. And, one of my first thing that comes to my head is drama. Can't cope, won't deal, nah. And especially if it's not my drama, or even if it is in my face, I just think, no. And I just say no, and I think it's a marvellous thing to do. I know. Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyway, we do reach a point in our lives, like we have safe stops, points on the mountain of life, as you will. As we climb up and beyond, we reach different places that we can see how we got to where we have by the paths that we've chosen, right? And there seems to be a place where we get to rest for a while, maybe even bask in how even and fair and wondrous the world seems. Maybe you're on holiday having a fabulous time and making plans of what you like to do when you come back because you've had that downtime, you've had that time to just really, relax into relaxing. And I'm finding that what I'm doing in my old age is I am purposefully, mindfully acting like I am on holiday by way of my thinking. I want to believe that the world is a fair place. I don't want to buy into all the harshness because all that does is do my head in. So mostly a reflection of our inner world reflected back to us, if you know what I mean. And we know it's temporary before we embark on next steps when we're full of hormonal rage that would rival the meanest of hashtags. So with hashtag everything's changed in mind, turns out whether we know it or not, say when entering into, menopause, there began the rewriting of the rules of aging. We are not our grandmothers. We are modern women with tattoos, hair every colour, dressing how we please, aging with confidence, and my don't give a damn button broke a few years back. That's bloody right. Absolutely. I pulled that sucker right out of the wall anyway. What are we supposed to do? Boo-hoo the next 30, 40 years? I'm not the same person I was at 25 or 32 or 48 or 56. They were just randomly chosen numbers, by the way. But anyway, I may have been one of those people who thought not age appropriate. Now I know, damn those rules. I also think that if we can accept tough times are a part of the seasons of life, it will keep you from sinking into limited thinking. And as an aside, none of this happens overnight. But it is true, making a decision every day does turn into how you live your life naturally. The bottom line that I have found is that some tough times will teach you that good times just can't. Ain't that a doozy? Having taken the time to consider something I may be going through or recently gone through, and the realization hits that it was good that something happened because it revealed what I didn't know. Isn't that so true? And how much was I going to get involved in the mechanics? Zero interest. Hashtag everything changed. I consciously cannot abide drama, especially ongoing drama in my life, and especially others that live for drama, and life is always a pain in the ass for them. It is the taking the next steps on our own and catapults you to the next stage of your life that you may have been too afraid to take. Landing after being catapulted can be messy. It can feel like what's next? New lands, new language, that like everything else, there is a dust settling period isn't there, and then it gets clearer. But at least it's not what you were getting away from. That is behind you. That is a feeling I do like, knowing you're not there anymore on any level. And self-compassion, the being gentle with yourself, showing understanding to yourself. It gets easier and the obvious thing to do. Again, all coming back to sound practices to invest in your own growth. Being in your heart, keeping in mind that your thoughts are electric, your heart is magnetic. I'm a mere impulse into this quantum field. So when we feel what we're thinking, we magnetize it. Hashtag everything changed. When my mum got her first set of false teeth, terribly frightened I was. I was about 8 years old. I was just mortified about how her teeth were just too big for her face. They rattled around in her mouth for a long time. I'm not sure if that was a part of the process 3,000 years ago in dental technology, or she didn't know that maybe she could get them tightened. I don't know what the industry term is. But even if that's a thing, I don't know. One thing I could do was make my mother laugh truly heartily, and it made me feel so good inside to make her belly laugh, for her to be begging me to stop. Anywho, did you digress? I think I might have. My idea of humour only advanced with her getting these bloody dentures. So thanks, Mum. It's so grateful to find things to be grateful for. And talking about being grateful, that has some serious research behind it now. And think about it, minus the science. How good does it feel to be utterly grateful, so damn happy you could make a pair of glasses cry? That deep feeling of happiness and gratitude. So here's a bit of the science behind gratitude. When we express gratitude and receive the same, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the two crucial neurotransmitters responsible for our emotions and how they make us feel. And they make us feel good. They enhance our mood immediately, making us feel happy from the inside. So in short, gratitude, the expression of, activates the brain stem to produce these pleasure chemicals. Gratitude helps people refocus on what they have instead of what they lack. Some of the mental roadblocks, I think it is so important for us to know how much control we actually have in our happiness stakes. Feeling impatient, now we know when we're getting impatient with others or ourselves, don't we? At those moments, it's the moment to stop. Maybe take a breath or two and start again. Whatever it is we are getting cranky about, just stop if it's appropriate. Having high expectations can take away our happy dopamine and our serotonin levels, but there's hope. Devoting time to the practice of stopping your impatience, for example, notice it, stop it, breathe. A lot of power in breathing, stops you in your tracks and refreshes your brain and can help change one's mentality about gratitude. Gratitude on the deepest level is a reflection, acknowledgement and acceptance of our worth, not only to others, but importantly to ourselves. Yes, thank you. That's right. Thank me. Thank me, yes. Thank you to me. All these matters, while seem simplistic, they are. I tell you right now, something for free. If it wasn't easy, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. We do control our perspective. We do control how far down the rabbit hole we're prepared to go. Not all of us will save ourselves. Some of us, a lot of us, require hitting rock bottom to confirm change. Stuff we knew we had to look at sooner or later. Save yourself. The only right and true thing to do. If nothing else, a rite of passage. When I was a younger woman in my 30s, I said a lot, and probably into my 40s, I used to say a lot of, here we go, another rite of passage. I knew I was learning again, that life was teaching me and I was up for it. Not that I had any choice, because once you know, right? It didn't help that I knew what it was. It also was an unknown as to how long the rite of passage was going to travel. It was always going to be time. And I've also noticed that mostly it's not fun and it never arrives at a great time. Also, I wasn't aware that I had choices. That was a biggie when I was younger. I didn't know of the concept. I would worry myself into terrible states, and ultimately, fortunately, I found, after lots of reading, educating myself and reprogramming my thinking, that I started not buying into crap. That's code for rubbish thinking. Rubbish thinking did not serve me. And I felt like I was balancing high emotions that were destructive to my sense of peace, that I was like a leaf blowing in the wind, always subject to which direction the wind was blowing. And as time goes by, when you can remove yourself from the line of fire, that be life, and you get to do that a few times, you get pretty damn good at it. And you get good at looking after your universe. One's personal destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. Oh, I like that. Yeah, me too, Bob. That old nugget of self-respect is a beauty of a lesson. You don't have to wait a length of time to be worthy. You are worthy now. Not when you get that job, not when you lose 10 pounds, nor when more people know who you are. Now, simply because you exist. And that's it. One day we all get to understand why we had to go through what we did and how to happen exactly as they did, to guide and redirect you to where you're always meant to be. And I used to call that signposting. I had noticed that when I found myself in a far better place, I looked to how I got there, I realised that what seemed to be like awful scenarios had in fact led me to where I needed to go. And more often than not, it was where I felt I could breathe deeply. Oh, I like that. Yeah, you've got to trust that process, of your path, Bob. Yeah, trusting the process of your path. Yeah, because we don't always know when we're on a path per se, but we know there's a process going on, don't we? No, what do you mean? Well, Bob, it's like when you have another birthday, say you're turning 45, you were 44 yesterday, and it takes a while to fit into your new age. You know you're on the process of another year delivering you into the age of 45. Oh, I'm so glad I asked. Oh, shut up, Bob. Which brings us to the end of yet another podcast, Marble Dwellers. It's time for me and Bob to skip to the loo, my darlings. It's been swell. It's been fabulous. Love it when you join us. Say good day to the family for me. Give the butterflies a flutter. And we'll see you next time. Okay then? All right. Bye.
Bye. See you later. Bye.